Forgive me if you've already heard this spiel, but for those of you who have just joined us, welcome. We'd like you to introduce yourself to us by renaming yourself with your name and your agency affiliation. There is a pre-workshop survey that we're hoping that you can fill out as we begin our workshop here. The link is in the chat box, and I'll put it in the chat box again. We ask that you type Hopelink, where it asks for the training host organization. That way that folks can connect your survey to this particular workshop. You should have received the materials for this workshop in advance in the reminder email. For those who may not have, don't worry about it. We will be dropping PDF links into the chat as our training develops. Please keep those handy, either pen and paper in front of you or pulled up on your desktop as we review them. So without any further ado, welcome. Let's see here. And welcome this morning to Financial Empowerment, Tools for Homeless Service Providers. My name is Jason Austin. I am the membership organizer with the Seattle-King County Coalition on Homelessness. I am joined on the call today by my colleague, Sasha Koberling. And we're excited to bring you this workshop, which is the latest in our series of case manager trainings. I know many of you are familiar with our work. The Seattle-King County Coalition on Homelessness is an education and advocacy-focused nonprofit that seeks to mobilize our community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and to advocate for housing justice in our community. We are a membership-driven organization. Our members are direct service agencies and housing advocacy organizations that are doing the work here in King County to end the crisis of homelessness in our region. One of our coalition partners is a group called Hopelink, which has been using a rather compelling tool in their case management practices that we're excited to bring to you all. Couple quick notes before we dive in. I do want to acknowledge that this training is being recorded, so we will be able to make a copy of these materials available later. Yes, and I think that's all I need to review. Without any further ado, I would like to move forward and introduce our main presenters for this training. We are lucky enough to be joined on this call by Donna O'Connor, Emily Goodwright, and Joy Horbachuck with Hopelink. They have been using the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit in their work, and they're excited to explain how they've folded it into their practices and give you an overview of how to use this in your daily work. And I think without any further ado, I'm going to throw things over to Donna to start us off. Donna, thank you so much for making this training available.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you all for participating. We are just thrilled to see how much interest there is in financial empowerment and how to bring financial empowerment tools into the work that we're doing with our clients every day. So we are delighted to be here. I did want to start with a disclaimer that is required from the CFPB. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but just kind of in a nutshell, what we're saying here is that we are not employees or agents of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So therefore, you know, any opinions that we give or things that we're talking about aren't necessarily to be considered the opinions of or the views of the Bureau. That's going to be particularly important for this training because we are actually doing a really cool thing today because we're collaborating with other providers that we're able to kind of show you how we're using the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit, which is a CFPB created document and created toolkit. And at the same time, we're also going to be bringing in some other resources. So there'll be some CFPB stuff and some other things. So we just wanted to let you know that the Bureau is not, you know, when we express our views, that is not us expressing the views of the Bureau. I am going to just very quickly, because as Jason said, we have a pretty packed schedule today. I just want to highlight a couple of things for those of you who are not familiar with the CFPB and how we got here with a financial empowerment toolkit. I just wanted to share a little bit about who they are and why they've been a bit of a game changer in the work that we're doing with financial empowerment and building financial capability. The CFPB is a government agency. They are pretty much working to ensure that consumers get the information they need to make financial decisions that are really best for themselves and their families. And the Bureau, I look at them in kind of three pieces. They have enforcement power. And what that means is when a financial institution or, there are some bad actors out there, when they are actually either breaking the law or participating in predatory practices, the Bureau actually holds them accountable. And they have actually returned billions of dollars to consumers who have been harmed by these types of practices. So they are an enforcement agency. They also maintain a consumer complaint database, which is very helpful so that if you find that you've run into a situation with a financial company or a credit company and you're not able to get anywhere with them, you can file a complaint with the CFPB and they will follow up and see if there's an enforcement that needs to be executed. So it's really been a tremendous thing for consumers to be able to have an agency like this kind of on their side. They also do a lot of education, everything school-aged all the way up through retirement education. They do research. And so it's a really important part of kind of getting the word out to consumers around financial empowerment and financial capability, skills building. And then finally, they do a lot of work with empowerment, and that is really around creating tools, sharing tips. If you haven't visited their website, I would encourage you to do that. Any question that you can possibly think of related to money and finance is addressed on their website, and in just tons and tons of tools that are made available for free to the public. One of those tools is called the Your Money, Your Goals Financial Empowerment Toolkit, which is what got us here today. And that is a toolkit that was created and designed for service providers who are working with economically vulnerable populations. And that is kind of what we want to share a little bit with you today. Hopelink has been using the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit for many years. It is not a curriculum in the sense that you don't go through the book and then you're trained on this. It's really meant to be a toolbox with resources that you can use with your clients to help them navigate financial decisions. So that is a very quick overview of who the CFPB is and how we got here with the toolkit. And I am now going to turn it over to Joy and Emily, and they are going to talk a little bit more about orientation to the toolkit, and also we have an opening activity for everyone.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Joy. I hope that you are able to find some good tools today that you're able to take with you and use with your clients. I do have two screens, so if I'm not looking at you, I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just going back and forth. To start our training, we're going to do this tool that's called the self-assessment. And this tool gives you a better understanding of your own financial skills, knowledge, and your overall confidence. At the end of this tool, there will be answer keys that will give you links to specific parts of the financial toolkit where you can learn more information about those specific areas. But overall, this tool will help you figure out what you know, how you feel about money and finances, and your experiences with different financial products. So I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to do this. Please pull it up on your own and just go through it. 5 minutes starting now, so we'll come back at 10:15. Thanks. All right, hopefully everybody was able to complete the self-assessment. We're now going to scroll down to the answer key, where you can see that it gives you the answers to the survey or tool you just used. And then also it gives you the module numbers in our toolkit to review these specific topics. So depending on if there's things that you would like to learn more on, for me, I was interested in the number 10. As a consumer, you have almost no rights when it comes to financial products. It's just really helpful to have all this information in the toolkit than to just flip to section 9 and look through what ways I can protect my money. And if we scroll down farther, it also gives an answer key for part 2, which also highlights what parts of the toolkit you could go to learn more about these topics. And now I'm going to hand it over to Emily, and she's going to review the toolkit itself and all the modules.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. In just a second, Donna's going to pull up this slide. So I'm just going to briefly go over the organization of the toolkit. The Your Money, Your Goals toolkit is divided into 9 different modules, offering a very comprehensive set of tools and information about multiple financial topics. And like Donna said earlier, this toolkit is not a curriculum, but is meant to be used at the right time with the right content based on what your client wants to work on. So if they're interested in improving their credit, focus on the module on credit. If they're interested in saving, focus on the module with saving. It's a lot of content to get through and it can be very overwhelming. So it's better to kind of pinpoint specific things that your client is interested in working on. So unfortunately today, we do not have time to review all of the modules because there are so many, but we have picked out 4 that we think are going to be relevant to you as providers, especially with the client populations that you're working with. So the first module we will be focusing on is module 3, and this focuses on tracking income and benefits. We will then move to modules 4 and 5, which cover paying bills and getting through the month. And then we will look at module 7, which is focused on understanding credit reports and scores. And feel free to let us know in the chat at any time if there is a module topic you are interested in learning more about. So now we will be jumping into module 3. So we're going to start content. So the income and, oh, I just skipped ahead in my notes. You need to know what is coming in before you can plan for spending. So this module will focus on tracking income and benefits in order to help your clients create a budget that works for them. So the first step to creating a budget is looking at what income and benefits are coming in and understanding the difference between those 2 things, income and benefits. So income is the money that you receive from a part-time or full-time job, self-employment, and investments. Income can also be irregular, seasonal, or one-time. And I was interested if you guys could drop in the chat, and I'll read some of the answers out loud. What are examples of seasonal, irregular, and one-time income? So just put it in the chat if you have an answer, and I will read it out loud. So inheritance, yep, income tax return, great, stimulus payments, which is something we're all thinking about now. Seasonal jobs, so that could definitely be like yard work during the summer. Stimulant checks, yep. Seasonal farm income, tribal per capita checks, interesting. Yard sale, student loan, these are all great. These are great examples. Okay, and then so money can also come from tax refunds. So that would be an example of a one-time inheritance and gifts, which can be saved and all spent as income. Income does not have restrictions on what you are able to use it for, like benefits often do. And then another question for you, how do you think benefits, public benefits differentiate from income? And feel free to drop in the chat. If you have any idea, Fixed, non-taxable. Okay, yep. Federal money, eligibility, yep. Benefits generally are not taxed where income is taxed. State money, yep. Okay, great. So benefits are payments you receive from local, state, tribal, or federal government agencies, and they're often designated to help families, individuals cover basic living expenses. People typically have to apply and qualify to receive benefits. It is important to track benefits the same way that you would track income, since they do often cover everyday expenses. Benefits are often not as flexible as income and can only be spent on specific things. An example of this is SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is a benefit that can only be spent on groceries. And then having benefits frees up cash on other living expenses. So if you believe you're working with a client who could qualify for a benefit, help them apply, because that's more income for them, and then their earned income or other income that is not benefits can be then redirected to cover other expenses. And then next slide.
All right, I'm going to be covering garnishment. We felt this was important to include, especially in today's climate, because a lot of people do have debts that they are unable to pay towards right now. And garnishment is a way that a creditor or the government can directly collect the money from your paycheck. This generally can only happen with a court order. Common reasons for garnishment are taxes owed to the IRS or state, so the government can do it, money owed for child support, money owed for delinquent student loans, and other unpaid or delinquent debts. If a creditor sues you, they might be able to win the debt and take it into garnishment, in which case you have no choice. The payment comes straight out of your paycheck without any consideration. The only way to stop a garnishment, this is the hard part, is with a court order or for filing for bankruptcy. I personally have some experience. I worked with a client. She bought a car from a predatory car dealer who would finance her even with her bad credit. The car engine blew up 3 weeks later, and the car dealer went to court and got the order to garnish her paycheck, even though she didn't have the car anymore and it didn't work. End result was we ended up going and filing bankruptcy, which when you file bankruptcy, it immediately stops the garnishment. There is a percentage, I see that in the thing. Yes, they can also garnish from your bank account if you are not receiving a paycheck, and there is a percentage. So if we can go to next slide. This is how the percentage breaks up. Each state can have different laws that could make it a little bit higher or a little less, but in general, it's 25% of your paycheck or your income. The amount, and then, so yeah, either 25% of your disposable income or the difference between your income and 30 times the federal minimum wage, whichever is more. Some states provide additional protections that allow consumers to take home more pay than would be allowed using these federal limits, but not all states. You'll have to check with your individual state to determine that. All mandatory deductions are protected outright from garnishment. So federal, state, local taxes, Social Security, and Medicare contributions do not count towards that percentage. And generally, amounts received from Social Security, disability, child support, and alimony are also protected from garnishment from regular creditors and they will not be able to garnish that. If you do owe the federal government, though, for student loans, back taxes, child support, you may not be protected. They can still garnish. And yeah, I think that's all for that. So we're going to move to the next slide, which is Emily.
Hey, yeah. So now we're going to look at a tool, this tool was sent out to you all, and I think we are also going to drop it in the chat because I'm going to have you all open it, and we are going to test it out. So the income and benefits tracker can be used to help clients get a total picture of the income and benefits that they have coming in each month, which can help them better budget for expenses and saving goals. So this is the tool, and For you to get started with your client, when you're working with a client, the thing that you're gonna wanna do to get started is to gather all of their pay stubs, benefit statements, and any other documentation of income that they've received in a 30-day period. And now we're gonna kind of show you how it works. So Donna, if you could enter August, because we're gonna look at, say someone is receiving income for August. The client that I have made up for this is receiving income bi-weekly. So she's gonna receive $625 from one job in the first week of August, and then $625 from one job the third week of August. She's also receiving child support, which she receives at the beginning of the month, so that would be week 1, and that is $400. There it is. And then she's also receiving SNAP at $120, which is also going to be week 1. And so if you are using the electronic document with your client, as you can see, it auto-populates, which is great because then we don't have to worry about doing the math. It's just on the computer. So one thing to note about this document is you're going to want to use net income to provide the most accurate picture of the money that a client has available for them to use every single month. Net income, if you don't know, is what someone actually brings home in a paycheck. It's the total pay minus taxes, insurance, and deductions. And this is something you're only going to have to worry about from like income from a job. And then a question that I wanted to ask you really quick before we practice filling it out is, do you think that there are any categories missing from this document? And feel free to drop it in the chat if you do. If you don't, that's cool too. Okay, it could be that it's just a really comprehensive document. There's also an option to put in other. So if you are working with a client and they do, say in August, they know that they're gonna get their tax refund, you can add that to this, another, and just say tax refund. So now what I wanna give you guys a chance to do is just take 2 minutes to fill out this document with a fake client to see how it feels, see what it's like for the auto-populate, and then drop in the chat what it was like to fill this out. If you thought it was easy, hard, if there's anything you think should be added. And I'll give you 2 minutes, so until 10:30, we'll do this. And I do see some stuff popping up in the chat. One thing that could be added is gifts, maybe a monthly bus pass to help with transportation. Oh, gift funds, I see, yep. And then SSI, that could probably fall under disability benefits or other government programs. And then settlement payments. And somebody said that the sheet looks good, easy to understand and to fill out. I do think it is very straightforward, which is nice. And then, yes, love the format. Super user-friendly, especially when you can do it on the computer. I love the auto-populate function. And then I agree with how user-friendly the form is. And this is something that you can do with your client every couple of months, every few months. If they know that they're gonna have a month where they have other income sources coming in, maybe they wanna have a clear picture of what that's gonna look like, so pull it up and use it then. I know that in our case management program, we have a few variations of tools, and we look at budget and expenses every 3 months with our clients, which really helps them understand how their budget and expenses change month to month. And then someone said theirs didn't calculate a total. That's, oh, I don't know why that would be. That is a tech thing. Okay, and so it's 10:30, and we had a lot of good responses in the chat. And then someone said, appreciate the visual aids with each category. I like that too. That's very cool. Okay, and then I think we're gonna move on to next slide. Which is the SSI benefits estimator. So this is another Your Money, Your Goals tool, but this is in one of their supplemental guides for people who work with people who have disabilities. And so this benefits tool, which I think Donna's gonna pull up, and I'm not gonna really go into this too much, but if you are working with someone who is receiving supplemental security income, you can use this tool to help estimate how a change in income from work will impact your client's SSI benefits and help them calculate their monthly SSI amount. Again, this should auto-populate, but it's another really easy and straightforward tool to use with a client, especially a client who is receiving an income that's a little different and needs a little bit more work. And then I think Donna will kind of go over the guide, the supplemental guide or tool a little bit later. So this is available to you through Your Money or Goals, and it may have been sent out to you too. So you can take a look at that. And then next slide.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the different ways that you can get paid and the benefits and risks of each. So we're going to pull up this tool called Choosing How to Get Paid. There are many ways that you can get paid and receive your benefits. Each one has benefits and each one has risks. This tool helps you kind of look through the benefits and the risks. So I'm going to read for cash. Cash is paper or coin money minted by the US government. Can be spent almost anywhere, easy to access, but the risk is could be lost or stolen, especially if you carry large amounts, can be more difficult to track. It reviews the different risks that there could be, because depending on your situation, you're gonna have a different type of payment that's gonna work best for you. Paper check, it's a physical check given by the mail or in person. This can be deposited to a checking account. If lost or stolen, it can be canceled. Sometimes there's no fee to cash on us checks, which are written from bank accounts. The issue with checks is sometimes you have to wait until they arrive in the mail, or it can be picked up. They can also take a little time to process and become available in your bank account. They require you to take action and actually go and put it in the bank account. And then there's a few more that they've listed there. The method direct deposit. Money is electronically sent to your bank account, credit union, or any of your prepaid cards. The benefits, as you can see, this one has a lot of benefits. It says it reduces your risks of loss or theft if funds are sent directly to the bank account. But there are some risks. Then if we go down, we'll see the payroll card, which I was a little unfamiliar with. This is a card that your employer gives you and loads your wages onto directly, instead of sending you a check in the mail or direct deposit. The one concern with this one is you always want to write down your card number just so that you have it. Potential service and activity fees, meaning you might have to pay certain things to access your actual wages. You could have to go to an ATM to get cash out, which might cost you ATM fees. And a lot of cards that we know limit how many times you can access that, funds through them through an ATM. And then last is the government benefits card. This one is a lot more secure. It has full federal consumer protections, just like any other credit card. So funds can easily be accessed and then transferred. And then we'll go down to the EBT, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, which is another type of government tracking card. For some EBT cards, funds may usually be accessed in a variety of ways. The issue with this is there may not be as many protections for returning funds if they are taken through unauthorized use or lost. And some benefits can actually expire if you don't use them in time. So this tool is great to just kind of sit down with your clients and kind of review the different ways that you can be paid and which one will work best for them depending on their situation.
I think next slide. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up module 3. And the first thing that I kind of wanted to go over is, depending on how much time you have with a client, what kind of tools you can utilize from this module. So if you have 10 minutes with a client, you can review the choosing how to get paid to see the pros and cons of different payment methods, like Joy just showed you, to see what works best for your client. If you have 30 minutes to work with someone, try filling out the income and benefits tracker to see how much money they have coming in each month. And then if you have multiple sessions, you can use the increasing income and benefits tool, which we did not go over, but is available in the toolkit, to think about ways that your client can boost their income. And then just a few points to wrap up this section. Managing money and benefits is essential to financial empowerment. Many people do not think about their income beyond the amount they receive. So these tools are a great way to get people thinking about their income and give them more visuals for it. A budget to fill out, a chart to see what the best way to choosing how to get paid is. A lot of people don't think about these things, but if they have the tools and the options to, they will, and they'll feel more empowered and make better financial decisions. And then understanding issues of timing and predictability can help your clients take more control of their finances. And if they find they don't have enough money, it's important to identify strategies that can help them bring in more income and resources. Then I think we are on to our first break, and then maybe answering any questions that have been dropped in the chat box.
Thanks, Emily. There's been some really fantastic questions in the chat that we should touch on really quickly. First, a comment. A few folks have mentioned that they have had trouble getting their form to calculate the total at the bottom of the calculation. Sarah shared that when she switched over to Chrome as her browser, that seemed to fix the problem. So if you're having issues and you're on Internet Explorer, it might work better if you switch to Firefox, Chrome, or a different browser. Mary Ann asked, are the tools in this toolkit available in other languages?
That I do not know. Donna, do you know if they are available in other languages?
So the toolkit, to my knowledge, is not, the full toolkit is not available. However, many of the tools that the CFPB produces, of which these are some, are in multiple languages. And so I would encourage you to go to their website at consumerfinance.gov, and in the consumer section or practitioner section, either one of those, you can kind of scroll through and see if you can find a tool that might be of interest, and then see which languages it's produced in. So there are a variety of tools in a variety of languages. Something else, and if I can find it, I'll try to highlight it later in the section. The CFPB has done also something where they've recorded in a lot of other languages, maybe less common languages than we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and they've actually recorded someone reading through some of the tools as well. So it's really kind of a case by case. It depends on the tool.
Excellent, thank you, Donna. And then Megan has a good question. This is really cool, but the information is a lot to digest quickly. How long did it take for all of you to get comfortable with the material?
So from my experience, I started learning about these tools pretty much like the second I started as a case manager at Hopelink 3 years ago. And so we've been utilizing different variations of the tools monthly with clients. And so I think it took me like a few months to get comfortable. And definitely looking through the toolkit, there's a lot of things I still don't know because I haven't utilized those things with clients yet. But I think as you start using things with clients and kind of looking at how simple and straightforward the tools are, it's really easy to get and to understand. I know working on this training, I also learned a lot more. So yeah, that was my experience. I don't know, Joy, if you have anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the more I use them, the more comfortable I become. And yes, setting up this training, I hadn't used all these tools because the toolkit has so many different tools, and each client that you work with really has different needs that they want to work on. So I'm familiar, I've looked at all the tools, but the more I use them, the more familiar I become.
Awesome, thank you. So we want to give you all just a quick moment to sort of digest what we've already gone over before we launch into the next section. So go ahead and get a drink of water, stretch, maybe go give your work from home colleagues a pet, make sure that their food bowl is full, and we will reconvene here at 10:45. All right, if we could have everyone come back. I hope you all were able to take a moment to breathe, get a drink of water, do whatever it was that you needed to do. And we are now going to move on and do a quick overview of Module 4 and 5 of the toolkit. Emily and Joy, take it away.
All right, so we are going to be starting with Module 4, which is paying your bills. And to start Module 4, we're going to first define spending, which is money you use to pay for a wide range of basic needs, your financial obligations, and other things you may want. Now let's look at those 3 types of spending right there: needs, wants, and obligations. Needs are things that you must have to live. Wants are things that you can survive without. Obligations are things that you must pay because you owe someone money. As we're going through these, I want you to think about, what you would consider to be a need, a want, or an obligation, and also think about that other people may have different needs, wants, or obligation based on their culture, their religion, their values, and their family dynamic. All right, let's go to the next. So now we're going to work with this tool, the spending tracker. It, similarly to the one that Emily showed you, auto-populates, which is really helpful. And this can be a great tool to use with your clients because before you're helping, before they decide to make changes to their spending, it's a good idea for them to have a really good overview and understanding of how they're already spending their money. And there are different types of categories in spending. As you can see, this addresses them there: cell phone, debt payment, eating out, education and childcare, entertainment and personal care, grocery store and other supplies, health expenses, helping others, housing, utility, pets, transportation, and other. And I will note, you might ask, why is cell phone first? These are in alphabetical order. That's how they did them. So it's not based on value or what, should be your prioritized bill. So we're going to scroll down and I'm going to give Donna some expenses to put in so you can see how it auto-populates. So we'll do this for the month of August, just like we did with our income tracker. And we're going to put down for cell phone that she pays her cell phone, she, me, whoever we want to say the client is, on week 1, and her cell phone is $102. But she also has multiple debt payments that she pays. Her student loan payment comes out on week 3 for $73. And then she has a credit payment that is due at the beginning of week 2 that is $250. And then she also has a debt payment that she owes the courts where she's paying down a ticket, and she puts $25 to that in the first week of the month. For eating out, we're going to say that overall she spends about $250 a month, but it's broken down throughout the different weeks. So for week 1, we're going to put 25. For week 2, we're going to put 50. For week 3, we're going to put another 50. And then week 4 is going to be 75. And then week 5 will be 50. So a lot of eating out. And then we're going to put in for education and childcare. She's paying $50 at the beginning of every month for childcare. And then she's also, in the middle of the month, the 3rd week, she is paying another $50 for her daughter to be part of a gymnastics club. Then we're going to move down to entertainment and personal care. For Netflix, she's paying $12 a month at the beginning of the month, so in the first week. And then she has her internet bill with her Internet Essentials through Comcast, which is $10, which is due at the end of the month in the 4th week. For groceries and other supplies, we're estimating that she's spending about $150 every single week. The one thing that this doesn't pull in is the fact that if she did have EBT, that some of that groceries would be coming out of that. So it's important to note when you do compare this to her income, if there is EBT benefits, that those are included in that income, so it's being subtracted properly. For health expenses, she's healthy, so no health expenses. For helping others, she does send $200 a month down to her family who live out of country to support them. And she sends that with her second paycheck in the 3rd week. For housing and utilities, her rent is subsidized through King County Housing Authority. So her rent is $560 a month, which is due in the 1st week. And then she also has utilities that come out the 3rd week, and she pays just for electric, and that is $85. For pets, she picks up one thing of pet food once a month, beginning of the month, and that's $30 for her cat. And then for transportation, she has her car payment that comes out the 1st week of the month, which is $160. And then she has her car insurance that comes out the 3rd week of the month for $90. And then we're gonna say for other, miscellaneous expenses, we're gonna put in an extra $40 there at least each week for random things. So as you see now, it all auto-populated and shows all of her expenses. The great thing with this is you can do this for expenses and then use this income tracker to show and compare it with your income to be able to see where maybe you might want to cut some areas. Okay, so now we will go to next slide. So we're going to open up this tool. It's called Choosing How to Pay Bills. It's very similar to the Choosing How to Get Paid tool. It has a section that goes over the benefits and a section that goes over the risks, and then a section for, say, if you were doing this virtually, like we're doing a lot of meetings right now, your client could put in their questions and do this on their own and then email it to you, and then you could review it with them. But let's just kind of look over it. So yes, it talks about the different ways that you can, hold on. I think we're in the choosing, I think we pulled up the wrong tool. I think we messed that. Because this is the choosing, no, this is right, right? Yes, okay, I'm off. Okay, so choosing how to pay bills. So it talks about the different versions. You can pay with cash, which can be easy to use, requires bills to be paid in person though, which can be difficult, meaning you might have to actually drive in somewhere, which spends gas and time, versus check, it's convenient, you can just put it in the mail, but you will need stamps. And you also have to make sure that you have funds in your account, because if you don't, then you're gonna get an overdraft charge. For credit cards, this can be very beneficial. You can pay bills on the phone or by mail. It's easy to prove when you pay with your credit card because it shows up on your credit statement. It also protects you from unauthorized charges, as credit cards are protected. But it creates a debt you are borrowing and money when you use a credit card. So if you're going to use a credit card, you want to understand that the balance of you still have to pay the credit card bill off. And if you don't, then there can be high interest rates and late charges. For a debit card, it is also similar to credit. It's convenient, saves time, easy to prove that there was a payment. But again, the issue is if there isn't enough money in your account, just like if you write a check, you could get an overdraft fee, or it could be bounced and denied. And then a money order benefits is very easy to understand, can be mailed, can be more secure than a check. Pretty much anyone will take a money order. The thing is, it is inconvenient in the sense that you have to go to the bank, spend your time and your gas to get the money order. It also costs you a little bit to get the money order. And if it's lost, it's very hard to recover. And then online or mobile bill payment can be convenient, saves time, which also online might be using your debit or your credit card. So make sure to refer to the benefits and risks of those depending on what you're using. There are risks to this, of course. You have to set up an online account to be able to do this. The overdraft fees are obviously still a risk. And then, yes, your financial information may be vulnerable if you're not on a secure network. Someone could hack in and steal your information. And last is the prepaid card. This can be very convenient, just like a debit card. The one risk is possible fees for using the card to pay bills, which would be listed in the card agreement. So if there are no possible fees, that could be a very good option. And that is choosing how to pay bills tool. So now we will go back and we have one more tool. So we're moving down to the next slide and we're gonna go over the prioritizing bills tool. We're gonna pull that up. So the reason that we like to talk about prioritizing bills is because if you miss a car payment, you may have a late fee, but so you have to weigh out which bill is more important. Not having insurance means you can't drive your car and put your assets and your health at risk, and even your family's health. And honestly, I've never seen it picked up, but CPS can consider driving with your child without insurance neglect. But this is only a short-term plan, just to remember, because you can't, this is a plan for if you don't have enough money to pay all your bills and you have to prioritize which ones you're gonna pay and which ones you're gonna let slide, which we hope is not something that has to be done often. And remember, depending on your values or culture, you can have very different priorities. So just looking at this tool, you can see that it has different categories. Things I need for my job. So, I mean, for me, that's my car, that's my computer, it's my cell phone. Those are things that I can't do my job without. And if I can't do my job, I can't create income to then pay my bills. Insurance, why you need to pay that. Car insurance, so you can drive, health insurance, renters or home, things I need for my housing. Do I pay my rent? Do I want a place to live? Yes. Do I pay my electric bill? Do I pay my water, sewer, garbage? Credit cards, child support, and court fees and fines. So those are all obligations that I have to pay. So, and as you see, this kind of goes back to the needs, wants, and obligations. Just looking at this, I was wanting if everyone would put in the chat what they personally would prioritize as your top 2 bills. And then we'll kind of process and think about what maybe our clients would prioritize as their top 2 bills, because it could vary. So if everyone would take a second and just go into the chat and put their top 2 bills. Mobile phone, rent, gas, rent and car insurance, student loans, cell phone, phone rent, mortgage, credit cards, rent, credit card minimum, food rent, daycare, home loan, rent, student loans, car payment, food, gas, housing, rent and student loan. All right, yeah, I see a lot of rent and housing. A lot of people want to be housed and have their housing be secure. Now, just thinking about this also, I mean, I've worked with families. Laundry is a big one too. Yes, it is. And my families will sometimes have different things that they prioritize over me. I mean, as simple as they have to send money home to family, and that's more important than paying their electric bill or paying their cell phone bill. So it's very important to remember when using this with a client to not bring in your own biases as to what you think should be most important, but to kind of help them figure out what is most important to them and then prioritize their bills as such. And all right, we will go to next slide. So when meeting with a client to talk about opportunities for financial empowerment, this is kind of a little guide to, if you have 10 minutes, the spending tracker is a great tool to use. It gives a clear picture of what you're using your money and financial resources. If you have 30 minutes, choosing how to pay bills, cutting expenses, and the prioritizing bills tools are great. We did not go over the cutting expenses bill, but it is in the toolkit under this module, and it is helpful. And then if you have multiple sessions, use the bill calendar to visualize, organize all of your bills in a monthly calendar, which could also lead into a cash flow calendar, which is what Emily is going to talk about next. So I'm going to hand it over to her.
Hello. So yes, we are going to now talk about getting through the month, which is going to kind of combine modules 3 and 4. So working with your clients to track their money, track when their money comes in and out, can help them better understand if they have enough money to get through the week. So this module will help you understand cash flow by looking at how money flows in and out. It provides suggestions on how to improve cash flow to make ends meet each week. So cash flow, go back to the previous slide. I have questions for people. So I have a few questions for you, and we're gonna put them in the chat. So put your answers in the chat. So the first question is, what do you think a cash flow budget is? And you can write your answer in the chat, and I'll say out a few of them. So somebody said consistent, somebody said a budget based on how much you make per month, somebody said more flexible, cash that you have on hand, how much money comes in. So money coming in, money going out, shows when you're getting income benefits and when you're making payments. The flow of cash during the month, knowing when you have money coming in and out, money coming in and coming out. So yeah, all of those are great. So cash flow budget projects what money you expect to come in and how much you think you'll spend each week and when you expect the expenses to occur. So another question, how is a cash flow budget different from a regular budget? So it is more flexible. Takes into account the times during the month income happens and bills are taken out. So a cash flow budget is different from a regular budget because it tracks the timing of income and expenses. It breaks down a monthly budget week by week and accounts for when income and benefits are expected and when they must be used to meet needs, wants, and obligations. And then last question, what do you think may be the benefit to this approach, and why might the clients we work with benefit from this approach more than just a standard budget? So someone says breaks down into smaller increments. Ooh, things are coming in fast. Avoid overdrafts. This traces when you actually have the money. And then someone said a regular budget outlines overall cost. Cash flow can balance and flow to grow a budget. That's great. So now we are going to move on to the next slide. And we're going to look at a tool that is creating a cash flow budget. And we're gonna show you how to put numbers into this tool. So this is why I said that this kind of combines modules 3 and 4, because what you're gonna wanna first do to fill out this is take your income and benefits tracker for module 3 and then your spending tracker for module 4 to get started. Then what you'll do is you will input those numbers into this cash flow calendar. Or this isn't necessarily like a calendar view. That will be something we look at a little bit later. But I just want to show you how it works. So Donna, I'm going to have you put in week 1 under job 1, 625. Oh, and we want to do the starting balance of 200. So when you are doing a cash flow budget with a client, it is good to look at how much they start that month with in their bank account, in their benefits, in their whatever. Then for week 1, we are also going to put SNAP, which is 120. And then other 400, which is the child support. And then week 3, we are also going to put 625 from the job. So now, and you can see how it populates at the top, what that balance is each week, but this is just income. So now we are going to put in expenses, which will then subtract from that. And I just came up with some random things and we're just going to use them to see how the numbers change. So for cell phone, this person pays $50 in week 2. And then they have a student loan payment, which is $120 in week 3. Okay, and then eating out, $20 week 2 and $20 week 4. This imaginary person is very good at budgeting eating out. Childcare is going to be $300 at the beginning of the month. So that's going to be at week 1. And then entertainment, they have just some streaming, so $20 week 1. Groceries, $300 week 2 and $300 week 4. They also have subsidized, so it's going to be $800 week 1. Subsidized housing, yeah. And then for transportation, $50 week 1 and $50 week 3. That's just to pay for gas. And then this month, August, they have their car insurance payment, and they're doing a 6-month payment. And so it's going to be $650 at the beginning of the month in week 1. And oh, so that'll be other. You can put that under other or transport. That's fine too. So as Donna puts these numbers in, you can see how the totals change at the bottom. This person, especially since she has her kind of lump sum car insurance payment, is negative balance every single week. So the tools that we're going to show you moving forward are going to help you work with your clients to figure out how to make it so they are not negative every week. And obviously, this could be reality, but this is just like a random made-up client. So, so now what we are going to do is move forward to our next tool. So improving cash flow. So how, especially for this client, are we going to improve cash flow so they're not coming up short every week? So you can use the improving cash flow. Oh, I'm skipping ahead. So a cash flow budget can help you see where you are falling short every week so you can make adjustments if possible. If you are working with a cash flow budget with a client and discover they are falling short on income certain weeks, there are strategies to explore to improving cash flow. So these strategies may include increasing sources of income or other financial resources, including applying for public benefits that they might qualify for or applying for tax credits. It could be decreasing spending or uses of cash and other financial resources. or it could be matching the timing of sources and uses of income where possible. So moving around bills to weeks where you have more income. And so now we're going to move on to the improving cash flow tool. And Donna, if you'd like to open that up. So you can use this tool to explore strategies that could help improve cash flow. So as you'll see on the tool, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll just kind of give you an example of some of them that could be on here. So when you're using this tool, what you will do is you'll read through these strategies. And these are strategies on how to improve cash flow if you notice that a client is falling short certain weeks of the month. So read through the strategies with your client, and then have your client write down any questions or next steps they could take to potentially implement that strategy. And then encourage your clients to implement 1 or 2 strategies for the upcoming month to see how their cash flow improves. So, for example, an example of some strategies is your client may need to change the timing of a payment to coincide with a week that they receive income. So some payments are a little bit more fixed, like rent or maybe car insurance, but there are some other expenses that they could move around, like which week they buy groceries or something like that, in order to not come up short weeks where they don't have as much income. Or you could break up large periodic payments into smaller monthly payments. An example of that, based on the client we just did the cash flow calendar for, was she had that $650 every 6 months car insurance payment. It might be beneficial to her to break that into monthly payments. So she's only paying $100 and a couple of dollars each month for car insurance. So she's not falling so short every week. And so now we'll move on to the next tool, or the next slide. Okay, so adjusting your cash flow calendar. So what you will do with this tool is you will pretty much, what you put on your cash flow budget tool, you will put on the calendar. So you'll fill in this calendar tool, and then you'll put on the days that your income comes in and the days that expenses go out, to give your client more of a visualization of what it looks like throughout the month. This is, in our case management program, typically what we use to do a cash flow budget. And what we found with our clients is it can be a lot easier to break it up weekly. So if we're focusing on August for cash flow, we will send our clients home with kind of a little sheet of paper that is 1 week. And that 1 week, they will track their income and expenses, and they'll bring it back, and then we'll give them a new one, and they'll track the second week. Sometimes we find that clients are a little bit frightened of doing a whole month, so it can be easier for them to visualize it weekly rather than monthly. And just some notes about this tool is, so laying out your income expenses on a calendar can help with visualizing cash flow, making it easier to make adjustments to expenses. So it kind of shows here an example where instead of having groceries before they get paid, they're moving it to after they get paid. And then once income and benefits are added to the calendar, expenses can be moved or broken into smaller payments to better align with when you have income, which we kind of went over before. And then some fixed expenses are not as easily moved, like rent or car payment, but these can sometimes be negotiated. Expenses like groceries and entertainment can be more easily adjusted. And then an important thing to remember is that sometimes there isn't enough money to cover the month. In this case, it is important to develop a short-term plan or to prioritize bills using the tool that Joy showed you the last module, and pay those that protect income, shelter assets, and continue obligations for that client. So I think we can move on to the next slide. And you can totally start by using this cash flow calendar versus the cash flow budget tool if you think that would just be easier for your client to start with. The nice thing about the cash flow tool is it auto-populates, so then you can just like stick that right into the calendar. But sometimes the calendar is just better for visualization for clients. Okay, and then to wrap up this module, again, depending on how much time you have to work with a client, you can begin introducing and utilizing tools related to the cash flow budget with your clients. So if you have 10 minutes, you could work on the improving cash flow to learn about strategies to improve cash flow or change cash flow throughout the month. If you have 30 minutes, you can do adjusting cash flow to find expenses that you can move or reduce to make your weekly cash flow positive. And then if you have multiple sessions, using the creating cash flow budget to see how your income and expenses line up, which again can be super easy if you've already completed the tracking income and benefits or the tracking spending tool, because then you just like take all that info and put it into the cash flow budget tool. Then a few points to wrap up this section. A cash flow budget helps someone understand how the timing and income and expenses may be causing shortfalls within a month. These shortfalls can be masked in a static monthly budget. So that's a benefit to the cash flow budget. In creating the cash flow, keep track of everything you earn and spend money on for a week, 2 weeks, or 1 month, depending on what's manageable for your client. Use this information to then create your cash flow budget. And then remember to include savings for goals, large purchases, and life events too. And then a cash flow is about setting targets for how you will use your income going forward. And I think next slide.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Emily. We are quickly approaching our quick second break in the workshop. But before we do that, we wanted to take a pause for an advocacy break. We've talked about how we can help clients with their cash flow by increasing income, by moving around expenses. Another way that we can help clients with their cash flow is by engaging in civic advocacy efforts to bring additional resources to our communities. All of these financial decisions that our clients are making are happening within the greater context of what resources are available to them. And so we just quickly wanted to touch on a couple of opportunities that you can engage with to bring more resources to your community. The first is you can help your clients fill out the 2020 census, which is currently underway. The census is a once every 10-year count of all persons residing within the United States as mandated by the Constitution. It's important because of data, dollars, and democracy. The results of the census determine how roughly $17 billion per year in funding get allocated. That's everything from Section 8 vouchers to Medicaid block grants to funding down to school districts and so on. The census also determines where political districts and boundaries are drawn. Everything from who you send to Congress to represent you, all the way on down to local dog catchers, determined by the results of the census. And census data impacts everything from where hospitals choose to build new outpatient clinics to where local transit authorities choose to invest their services. So there's a lot on the line here. We know from past data that people experiencing homelessness are among several marginalized groups that are historically undercounted in the census, and even a small undercount can result in divestment from your community. There is a specific project of the census that counts people who don't have a traditional residential address. This process is called service-based enumeration. It's a count of basically where people access their services. Due to COVID, the timeline was delayed from spring to fall, so this process is coming up shortly. It'll be happening December 22nd through the 24th. September 22nd is when the census will be surveying people at emergency shelter locations and other temporary housing programs. The 23rd is when the census will be surveying people at mobile medical vans, soup kitchens, and feeding programs. And then the evening of the 23rd into the night of the 24th is when the census will be conducting a sort of point-in-time style count of folks living unsheltered. So again, this will occur in September, but that doesn't mean that you need to wait in order to count your clients. The census has the ability to deduplicate multiple entries, but if someone doesn't get counted, there's no way to correct for that. So when in doubt, count. You can either go online with your clients to my2020census.gov, or you can call the 1-800 number on the screen there. I recommend the 1-800 number if you have clients that need language translation services. And then again, we encourage you to participate in civic advocacy. And there's actually a really critical opportunity to use your voice to speak up for additional funding now. I'd like to introduce my colleague at the coalition, Hillary Coleman, who is going to go over this with you. Hillary, thanks for joining us today.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. So I just really briefly wanted to talk about, my name's Hillary, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently our community projects manager. And I just wanted to briefly talk about a couple actions that you can take that will support the clients that you work with. The coalition, as I think many of you know, is an advocacy organization, and so we always want to make sure that we're providing you folks out there helping people who have low incomes or who are experiencing homelessness with tools and actions that you can take so that we can systemically address some of the issues folks are facing with policy as well. So on the screen, you'll see a little blurb about this. Right now, our federal government, Congress, is talking about the next coronavirus relief package, and this message is from our kind of national counterparts, and they're calling this the most important moment in federal homelessness policy in 2020. So that's kind of a big deal. And really what we are wanting to do is ensure that the homeless system is adequately resourced to meet the difficult the challenges that the pandemic has. And unfortunately, right now, the Senate version of the coronavirus relief bill does not provide any resources for people experiencing homelessness nationwide, and that is not acceptable. So the link that you see on the screen, and I think Sasha or Jason will pop it in the chat box as well, is a link to a pretty easy action form that you can fill out to use to send an email to your congressional leaders for all of us. That will be both Senator Patty Murray and Senator Maria Cantwell, who represent the entire state of Washington, and then whoever your congressional Congress person is. And the form, all you do is enter your address, and it will help you fill out. If you're working with anyone who wants to use this form and they don't have a residential address that they feel comfortable using, I would suggest maybe having them use an address of somewhere where they access services, just so that you do need an address to fill out the form, because it will help you figure out who it is. But what this is really doing is it's asking them to support $11.5 billion in ESG funding, at least $1 billion in additional housing choice vouchers, and $100 billion in rental assistance, and also asking them to extend the federal eviction moratorium. If you want more background on these items, when you click that link, I think there's a link there that will tell you more about it. But these are things that the House of Representatives in the federal level has supported some of them. But what has to happen, as I think many folks know, is that the Senate and the Congress or the House of Representatives will need to pass something together. And so we want to make sure that the Senate, who has not supported these items yet as a whole, is supporting them. And then I also wanted to just talk about, so this is a federal action, and that link, super easy. I encourage you to fill it out even while I'm talking. I wanted to mention as well, there is, so our governor here, Jay Inslee, has extended the eviction moratorium in Washington state until October 15th. But we got an action alert this morning from our friends at Puget Sound Sage, another advocacy group, reminding us that while he's extended the eviction moratorium, he has not extended the utility shutoff moratorium, which is set to expire on the 1st, so that's this Saturday. So Puget Sound Sage is suggesting that people go to Jay Inslee's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and comment on his latest post that he shared. I am gonna put the text that they're suggesting to share here in the chat box, and then in a moment I'll also send you in the chat box the way that you can contact him directly. I just got this, so I apologize, I don't have that yet. But I would encourage you to reach out to Jay Inslee and tell him why it's so important for folks that you work with that that moratorium on shutting off utilities be extended. And then finally, we wouldn't be the coalition without reminding you that Tuesday is an election, and we want to make sure that everyone who's able and eligible to vote is voting. We've passed the deadline to register via mail or online, but there are 2 vote centers in downtown Seattle at CenturyLink Field and in Renton. And I'll pop in the chat box a link to our blog post that has all this information about voting during a pandemic. But we encourage you to help make sure that folks that you work with are voting. If someone lost their ballot or didn't get a ballot, there's a possibility they could print one online as well. There's information about that in our blog posts. And when in doubt, calling King County Elections is a good way to help someone troubleshoot how to best get their ballot. So that is all I have for you right now. Thanks for taking action with us today, because it really, will make a difference in trying to make sure that folks have more supports.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hillary. Thanks for the whole community for being on top of these things. Your voice really does count in these issues. So if you can just take a quick moment to fill out that action link and have your voice be heard, that'll just be one more drop in the bucket to help. Donna, just to be mindful of the great content that we have coming up in the next section here, do we want to just roll right into Module 7?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. Do we need more time for folks to work on the take action, or should we move on?
I think folks can finish filling out their action while we go through here.
Okay.
And we'll also include a follow-up link in the follow-up email as well for those of you who didn't get the chance here.
All right, so thank you. And thanks, Hillary, for that great information and opportunity to take action. Really important. Okay, so we're gonna get started on the next module, which is number 7 in the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit. And this is related to credit reports. We pulled out just a handful of things that we wanted to highlight. And the reason is that this is probably one of the biggest topics that we come up against by far. And we actually do 2-hour trainings on this topic alone. So what we want to try to do is just provide some of the tools that could get you guys started when you're working with your clients on really starting to look at credit history and how to start kind of moving clients into a more positive credit environment. So something that I hear a lot is I'm not going to get a loan. I don't really care much about my credit. Why should I care about what my credit is? And before I get kind of started with why it's important, I'm curious if you guys could just type in the chat, what are some of the top things that you hear from your clients with respect to credit? And while you're typing, I am going to kind of go through the slides as well, just in the best interest of time, but I would love to hear what you're hearing. So in terms of why, credit impacts a lot of things. We live in a state, fortunately, where employment screening, using credit reports for employment screening, we actually have a lot more protections in Washington state than many other states. But it can be a hurdle for folks where their job might be related to something that would have to do with money. If they don't have good credit or any credit, that could be a real barrier for getting a job. Additionally, if you work in the military or in any kind of government job that requires clearance, it can also be a barrier to that as well. We all know what housing and credit, they kind of go hand in hand. So I wanted to touch more on insurance coverage. This is something that actually a lot of my clients and a lot of people generally don't know, is that your insurance coverage and the rates that you pay for insurance are also tied to your credit score. So if you do not have a great credit score, you are most likely going to be paying more for insurance. The reason I'm bringing this one up is that we are in a very heated environment right now with this. Our insurance commissioner is getting some pressure, and a lot of states are really starting to put pressure on officials that this is really disproportionately impacting folks with low incomes, low credit scores, and we want to see this removed. There's really no reason why someone's credit score should impact the insurance coverage or what they're paying. So I did want to just kind of highlight that, and I'm hoping that this will change very, very soon. Other reasons why your credit history matters, you pay more for credit, you pay more on loans through interest, you pay more if you have to put a deposit down on utilities. So there's a lot of reasons why credit matters. And it also improves your credit score if you have a good history. And the reason I'm distinguishing between these two things right now is because your credit history, or the things that actually are in your credit report, are what drives your credit score. So I like to separate those two things out and talk about them separately. So, okay, we need to do something about our credit. Okay, so what's the first step? Well, the first step would be to order your credit report. To do that, we have a tool. The Your Money, Your Goals toolkit has a tool for that. I just wanted to, before we get into that tool, just mention there are 3 major credit reporting companies, which you're probably familiar with at least one or maybe even all of them. And that is the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. The federal government has a regulation where these 3 nationwide reporting companies are to provide a free credit report to every consumer annually. And they do that through annualcreditreport.com. So there's 2 things I want to point out here. One, the annualcreditreport.com is the only site that you can pull your credit report that's covered under this federal law. And 2, you'll notice that I have a COVID-19 response. This is really important because now through April 21st, consumers can pull their credit reports weekly. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you do it weekly, but what this means is that we have access, and our clients are going to have access to their credit reports a lot more often than they used to. So I just wanted to highlight that. So the requesting your free credit report, again, annualcreditreport.com is where you want to be going. There are a lot of sites out there that will try to scam you. They will try to sell you things. They're not as reputable, and you basically become a product once you get into some of these other sites. So you'll be offered credit cards and a lot of other things. So we really encourage you to use annualcreditreport.com. You'll fill out a form online. This is all the online tool. Select which reports you want, whether you want your TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian. You have to answer a few security questions just to make sure that you're who you say you are, or your clients are who they say they are, and then you should be able to get a credit report. Once you get your credit report, then we strongly recommend you either print it or save it, or both if you can, and that way you'll have it to reference. And then also, I know a lot of my clients, they don't have printers at home, or they don't even have like a reliable computer at home. Really want to try to discourage folks from doing this at a library or a public place, because inadvertently they could have all of their information stored on there. They could download it and it could be on the computer. So you really want to try to discourage folks from doing that. I'm going to pull up the tool. Sorry, there is a lag. I meant to say this earlier. There's a pretty long lag between the time I open a tool and this one doesn't look like it wants to open. So hang on one second. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so I just want to show you, like all of the tools in the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit, these are really client-friendly, service provider-friendly, that usually starts with an explanation of what to do, how to do it, why to do it, if you want to take it a step further. And then it goes right into the action part. So for this one, again, this is assuming that you can only get your credit report every 12 months. Like I just said, you can get it weekly, but when things go back to every 12 months, there's a couple of strategies that you can use when you're pulling your credit report. You can either pull all 3 of them at once, or you can do what we call a cycle. And the way that would work is basically you would say, for example, pull Equifax on one day. Then you would wait 4 months and you would pull your Experian report. And then you would wait another 4 months and then you would pull your TransUnion report. And then 4 months will have gone by and then you're back to pulling your Equifax report. So that's when we're in the environment of an annual credit pull. So it really doesn't matter which one you want to use. I tend to work with my clients that like to stagger it because they like to kind of see what's going on throughout the year. But just know that there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. And again, until April of next year, that doesn't really matter because you can get your credit report more frequently. And then on the tool is also a hyperlink to annualcreditreport.com so that you don't end up on a wrong site. Sometimes they just think a free credit report. They do all sorts of things to kind of get you going into a different place. You can call to get your credit report if you don't have computer access, or you can download and complete a form and mail it in. So there's multiple ways to get your credit report. So I'm going to go back. Okay. So once you pull your credit report, what you want to do is look at the information that's on the report, and you're basically just trying to verify, is it accurate? And I'm in the best interest of time, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right to the tool. Okay, so now you've gotten your credit report. Now what do you do with this? I hear this an awful lot from my clients. They I don't know how to read my credit report. It's really confusing. And it is. I mean, each one of them looks differently and they can be very confusing. So one of the things we like to do is try to break the credit report down kind of by section, right? So when you look at the tool, the first kind of section in your credit report is going to be kind of identifying personal information. That's going to be things like your name, your current address, previous addresses, your social security number, date and place of birth, things like that. You want to make sure those things are accurate. Oftentimes there's spelling errors. People don't really think that's a big deal. I always encourage my clients, look, whatever is on your credit report should be 100% accurate. And if it's not, then have it removed, dispute it, and get it corrected. So you look first at your identifying information, and this is kind of the way credit reports read anyway, in this order, or many of them. So look at all the personal information, make a note. Is there anything wrong, anything need to be corrected, highlight it, whatever you need to do. Then go to the next section, which is typically a public record section. Here is where you're going to find information like a bankruptcy or any other kind of public record information. Now, things have changed. It used to be that judgments and tax liens appeared on your credit report. They no longer appear on your credit report. So really the only public record that's going to be showing on your credit report right now is a bankruptcy for the most part. Then the next section you want to look at is collection account information. And so there you're just going to go through and look at the collection. If there's a delinquency, do you recognize the debt? Is this really your debt? Should it have been taken off your credit report by now? You just want to make sure that you know that what's on there is accurate, and if it's not accurate, then you can initiate a dispute and have it removed from your credit report. And then the other section, sorry, my mouse, this is basically account information. These are the accounts that are listed on your credit report, and they are typically loans, lines of credit, school loans, credit cards, that sort of thing. What is not on your credit report are bank account information, utilities. Most of the time your rent payments are not reported to a credit bureau, even though it would be great if they were, because then if you've got good credit history or good rental history, then that would be reported. So it's really only credit related accounts that are on here. I get questions all the time about why are my bank accounts not on here? It's because the banking system runs on an entirely different system. So the credit system and the banking system are separate. So if you want to look and see what's kind of in your bank history, that is called the checks system, and it doesn't combine with this. The only time information shows up on your credit report is if it's related to any kind of debt or credit relationship, or in the case of a utility, for example, if you are behind or delinquent on your utilities, or any bill for that matter, Comcast, cell phone. So all of those bills don't show up on your credit report unless you're actually late or delinquent on them. And then the last part of the credit report that we look at is what we call inquiries. And there's really two different types. I'm going to go back and share the previous screen again. So there's two different types. I just went through all of these, so I kind of combined two slides. Two different types of inquiries. The first one would be what we call a hard pull, and that is when you are actually seeking credit. So let's say you apply for a home loan or an auto loan or a credit card. That is you actually seeking a loan, and that is a look at your credit report that initiates what they call a hard pull. That has a minor impact on your credit score. It's not awful as long as there's only one or two of them. If there's a lot of them, then that can be problematic. And then the soft pulls are when you yourself or your client is looking at their own credit report. Maybe you have your insurance company, they can check on your credit every so often. Those are things where you're not initiating credit, but you have a right to see your credit report. And I'm bringing this up because one of the biggest myths that I hear over and over again is that people don't want to pull their credit report because they're afraid it's going to impact their score. And it does not impact your score if you yourself are pulling or if it's a soft pull. So that's something that I really like to make sure people understand. We want you looking at your credit report. We want you reviewing this and making sure that it's accurate. So you've pulled your credit report, you've reviewed your credit report. Let's say you found some errors on your credit report. What do? Well, there's another tool for that. Oops, let me go back. Sorry. I'm not going to open this tool, but in the same section, right, in Module 7 of the toolkit, you can kind of look through it, and it has a step-by-step approach to how do you dispute errors on your credit report. It not only tells you how to do that, it also tells you where to send the information, what to send along with the dispute, and they even have sample letters that you can just kind of type in your own personal information, print it out, and off you go. So they've made it really easy to dispute information on your credit report because again, everything on your credit report really needs to be accurate. I'm really sorry, I'm kind of flying through this, but I want to make sure we have time to get to everything. So you've pulled your credit report, you've reviewed it with the client, you've made some disputes, right? And then you have to kind of wait. And this is why you wait. It can take a while sometimes. I'm going to be honest with you. It can take a while to get things corrected. It can take sometimes a while with a lot of the clients that I work with. They haven't had an address in a particular place for any length of time, or they haven't had an address, or they have some things about their personal information that makes it difficult for them to pull their credit online. So sometimes we have to actually send in information to get the credit report back. That happens a lot with clients I have who have been maybe in and out of a shelter or whatever. They haven't been stably housed. So that takes some time. Let's say you've got errors on your credit report. That's going to take some time to dispute those and get those removed. And sometimes there's some back and forth with that. sometimes you just need time to build credit. People don't have credit, or they have credit, but they have, you know, a lot of late fee or a lot of late or delinquent accounts. It takes time for that to kind of heal, so to speak, right? So one of the things that I really encourage my clients to do is, even though, you know, we talk about what their priorities are and what do they want to work on, I always try to slip in, how are you doing on credit? Because one of the hardest things to do is when someone comes to me and says, well, I'm trying to move into an apartment next month. My credit score is really bad. What do I do? Well, we can get started with a lot of this, but the fact is you can't really do a whole lot in a month to turn that around. So that's why we love to get, you know, kind of started with the credit history early, so that it gives us time to start turning some things around. So I don't want to go into a lot of detail about credit scores, partly because it's just a super, super complicated, complex thing to navigate. But I do want to touch on a couple of things about the score. So scores are generated from the information that is on your credit report, so your credit history, right? So we're kind of going back to that first thing I said about why is this important? It's important because the things that are on your credit report are going to be impacting your score. Scores are calculated they're a mathematical formula. Okay, this is how we break this down. There's no human sitting there kind of saying, oh, well, this person's got this or this, right? It's a mathematical formula, an algorithm where all of this information gets fed into these companies and they generate a score based on their scoring models. Okay, so understanding that that's where that comes from. Secondly, there are a lot of scoring models and there are a lot of companies that do this. So you don't have just one score. And this is something that I talk to my clients about a lot. You have many credit scores because it depends on who's generating, you know, the information. So let's say a credit scoring company is getting information from TransUnion. Maybe TransUnion has a couple of things on there that Equifax doesn't, or something like that, right? There could be some discrepancies there. The company itself has their own model, right? So they're running a model based on their own information. And they have multiple models. So you could be generating 5, 6, 7 scores from one company alone. Then on top of that, there are 2 different types of scores. We have a FICO score, which most people are familiar with. They've heard of those. And there's also what we call a Vantage score. So there are some other ones too, but those are the 2 main ones. So you can see how it starts to get pretty complicated, right? You've got lots of different inputs, you've got different companies scoring, and you've got different scores. And then you've got different versions of scores. So what I try to talk to my clients about is, look, let's work on the credit history. Let's make sure everything on there is okay, and we've got that going. We're building credit. The score will take care of itself. We want to see trend data. We want to see it moving up, right? But it doesn't matter if it's going like this as long as it's going up. So I try to relax people. So, you know, don't worry so much about the score right now. Worry about what's on there and the behaviors and patterns, because as you can see in this pie chart, oops, that I just moved, sorry about that. Payment history, which is basically, are you paying your bills on time, and the amount you owe, basically how leveraged are you, are the 2 biggest factors of any credit score. So focusing on that and making sure everything is accurate is really a good conversation to be starting with your clients. Okay, so I want to quickly just highlight a couple of things since we're on the subject of credit. I want to show you guys that there, with the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit, right? It's a very big, thick toolkit. Along with that toolkit, the CFPB has come out with 4 booklets that are topic specific, one of them being credit, savings, debt, and money management and budget. They're all free. They're really nice little booklets, spiral bound booklets. So I would encourage you, when we're back face to face with clients, order those and use those with your clients to kind of go through. They're really, really user friendly. And then the other is the companion guides. And earlier there was an SSI estimator that Emily mentioned. That came out of the People with Disabilities Companion Guide to the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit. There's a companion guide for Native communities, and there is also a companion guide for individuals with criminal records. And so that it's called Focus on Reentry. And so I'm bringing that up because these are specific populations who might have specific needs. Using these guides, these companion guides, you can kind of go deeper into some of those needs and how to work with clients who may be in one of these categories. So again, I'm super mindful of time, but I just wanted to take a real quick look at the Focus on Reentry toolkit and specifically around the background screening reports. That is kind of related to credit because the Fair Credit Reporting Act not only kind of oversees the credit reporting system, it also oversees the consumer reporting system as well, and that is where this tool, the background screenings, would come in handy. Because, and I'm going to go this way, because there are rights that our clients or everybody has to what can and cannot be disclosed, or at the very least, you have a right to see what is in your background check before you may apply for a job or something like that. So this tool, while it's part of the Your Money, Your Goals training, it's in that companion guide. And so if you are working with justice involved individuals who might have some special concerns, this is a tremendous resource to help them kind of go through their background check, get kind of ahead of it, make sure everything is accurate, very similarly to the way we work with credit reports. You want to make sure everything's accurate before an employer may perhaps pull the background check. Okay, so that was an awful lot of information very quickly, and I guess overall what I want to say is, well, first of all, thank you. Having this many people interested in financial empowerment, like I said earlier, is tremendous. The work we do is so important, and it is almost impossible to disentangle financial stress and financial barriers with everything else we're doing. So I get a lot of people asking me like, well, I can't become an expert on everything. And that is kind of the message I want to have folks take away today, is that you don't have to be an expert on all of these things. These are complicated topics. Each one in and of itself is its own training. The toolkits are there to help you navigate with your clients. They're a resource, and I think that's the big takeaway. Use the tools either as they are. You can make adjustments to them. Sometimes I just have a client look through it and they write things out themselves. Sometimes it can be a conversation starter. So I guess the point is, use them however it works best for you and for your clients. I think that's about it in terms of the CFPB Your Money, Your Goals materials. Again, I know it was a lot in a short amount of time. I would encourage everyone, if you're interested in knowing more, like the CFPB comes out with almost daily information. Go to their website, sign up to receive their blog and emails, and there's just a ton of great information. So this concludes that portion of the workshop. I'm going to send it over to Jason, who has some additional resources and supplemental information to provide for everybody.
Awesome, Donna. Thanks so much. I'll just very quickly touch on some resources local to the community. Everything I'm going to mention here is either listed on our website or has links in the PowerPoint. So I'm just going to briefly touch on this to understand sort of some COVID era specific resources to know about. So part of the reason why we decided to put together this training was to better understand how to connect folks to their economic impact payments, aka their stimulus checks. Most of you know that these are one-time funds that are made available through the CARES Act. Many folks receive this already through direct deposit if they filed the tax return in recent years or if they receive federal benefits. For those who haven't filed in recent years, folks do need to go online to the IRS non-filers portal and fill out an application. I won't show it to you, but that last link on the page there is a step-by-step PDF guide for how to fill out the form, complete with tips for mailing addresses and screenshots of what the portal looks like. The deadline to apply for the stimulus payments is October 15th, so please be talking to your clients about this. And if they don't yet have a checking account set up, this is a great way to introduce that conversation, because it's much preferable to have a direct deposit set up for these funds as opposed to a paper check or a prepaid debit card. Now, when you're looking into opening a checking account in your community, there's a few things just to sort of note up front. There's a few things that every institution is going to ask for. They're going to want to see a government issue photo ID of some sort, and typically some secondary form of identification as well. They're going to need a social security, or in some cases, an ITIN number will work. And there's usually some minimum amount that's associated with opening an account. And then there's a handful of questions that you should consider when opening an account. And there's a helpful supplementary toolkit from the Your Money, Your Goals guide that kind of goes over some questions to ask. It's good to ask about online banking specifics and sort of what that looks like. It's good to ask if there are any minimum fees associated with the account and if they have any sort of minimum balance requirements. And it's helpful to know geographically where branches and ATMs are located based on where your clients access services. And it's good to understand if there are any fees associated with using those ATM services. And then for folks experiencing homelessness, I sort of encourage another additional layer of questions to ask, such as, are you willing to accept expired government photo ID? Is there any way that you can waive the minimum account opening requirement? Usually a credit check of some sort is conducted when opening an account. It's helpful to ask what would screen a client out of those, such as any prior debt or any accounts that are in arrears. And then, be upfront and ask them if they have any products that are specific to those experiencing homelessness, because there are actually some institutions that are specifically offering services to those who may face barriers to banking or who may struggle with a traditional checking savings account. A couple that I want to mention that I've had the chance in the community. Next slide, please. One is the Seattle Credit Union. Seattle Credit Union has developed a sort of specific program to work with folks who are looking to claim their stimulus benefits by opening an account. They are willing to waive their account opening fee for people who are experiencing homelessness. They are willing to accept government issued photo ID that's been expired for less than 12 months. And they only screen out folks who have fraud charges, not folks who may have a prior debt that may have screened them out of a previous bank. And then Express Credit Union is another organization that offers these type of services. Express offers limited financial counseling to all of their customers. They're also willing to waive new account balances on a case-by-case basis. They can accept photo ID, so long as you have other supplemental information. Again, with all these organizations, I really encourage folks to call ahead and ask some of these questions of a banking representative, just to sort of better understand whether or not these resources are going to be a good fit for your client. And I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. I was hoping to get a chance to talk about Bank On, which I don't think we have time for today, but just know that Bank On is a program that seeks to sort of highlight and elevate checking and savings account resources for folks. It's part of the Financial Empowerment Network, which has chapters across the state of Washington. I think most folks on the call are probably local to King County, but just know that Bank On and the Financial Empowerment Network does have chapters across the state that can sort of help you compare and contrast local options. The next slide is sort of a grid that just sort of explains sort of various financial services offered by different banks. And on the top there are just, again, a good series of questions that you should ask when looking into this. Okay, and then I want to really quickly touch on some resources that have been made available since COVID started that can sort of help with the overall expenses of what your clients might be holding, including childcare, which is a significant barrier to families with children that might need to enter the workforce. We are joined on the call today by Alex Barbario with Childcare Resources, who's going to really quickly review understanding kind of what these options are. Alex, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex, and I'm a family engagement specialist with the Child Care Subsidy Program at Childcare Resources. As we all know, childcare costs are increasingly rising, and King and Pierce County are no exception, and it can often be thousands of dollars for childcare a month for families. So the subsidy program, we work to provide access to childcare for families who are experiencing homelessness or who are less than 6 months into permanent housing in King and Pierce County. We work directly with families to navigate the childcare system. So that can include finding and accessing childcare, developing sustainable childcare funding plans. So what's going to work for you today versus 2 weeks from now versus 6 months from now when we're no longer working with you. Providing short-term subsidies. This bridge funding can become long-term funding for families who are not otherwise eligible for long-term subsidies like the state subsidy. And then getting connected with other community and state-based resources. So we can really work with a lot of families to make sure that they have access to childcare and have the ability to pay for it through our subsidy and through getting connected to other subsidies as well, and a plan for the future. And then to dive a little deeper into the state childcare subsidy, as you see on the screen, it's Working Connections is a 12-month childcare subsidy with a co-payment. As of July 1st, if you are experiencing homelessness, you can get a 12-month childcare subsidy, full-time childcare, no co-payment, starts on the day of application. CCR is contracted with the state, so we can assist families in making sure that they have all of their verification documents and then assist them in applying either over the phone or online, and then checking their application afterwards, helping them navigate that system and advocating with them when needed with state workers. And then you'll also see that we have Childcare Aware of Washington, which is a family center. It's a call center through Childcare Resources that can help any family in Washington state search for childcare and meet their needs, help them determine funding options. And then there's a universal screening question where we ask if families are experiencing housing instability, and they can be referred to the subsidy program through that. So that's a very, very short description of our programs. I believe that all of our flyers for these programs are going to be sent out in a follow-up email. I'm going to put all of my contact information for myself, the subsidy program, and for Childcare Aware in the chat box. We have a fair amount of funding right now, especially in King County and especially on the east side, so Redmond and Bellevue, but depending on funding availability, we can work with families anywhere in King or Pierce County. And there's no wrong way for them to get connected to us. It can either be through intake line, email, you're getting in contact with me, and we want to reduce barriers as much as possible. So I'm going to put all my contact information in the slide and in the chat. I know that was very short, but if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. If you even have a family that you think might be eligible, but you're not sure, reach out to me. I can always assist them in navigating other childcare resources if needed. So that's everything that I have. Thank you, Jason, for fitting me in. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. And yes, we will make all this information available in the follow-up email that we will be sending. I acknowledge that I am at time, and I want to respect those who may have other obligations. I just want to very quickly touch on a few more resource updates. The Lifeline telephone discount program has streamlined their application and review process since COVID-19 started. Clients who have previously been approved for Lifeline no longer have to resubmit verification of their income so as to not disrupt services. Unfortunately, free phone giveaways through Lifeline are not really happening any longer in the community. However, it's been made easier for folks to order phones to be mailed to their clients through the program. And DSHS has streamlined the way in which to add minutes to their phone. So again, I encourage you to review this information after the meeting. And many state benefit resources have changed their eligibility criteria since COVID started. Both the TANF program as well as the SNAP program no longer require that people be actively pursuing employment or education as a prerequisite to apply. They are still checking income, but if folks have previously been denied or sanctioned from TANF and SNAP due to these things, I do encourage you to reconnect with DSHS just to see if there's a chance that they can get reactivated. And the Disaster Cash Assistance Program is a new one-time grant that's been made available. It's for people who don't qualify for any other forms of public assistance. It's not subject to public charge and does not consider immigration. So if you're working with undocumented folks who don't qualify for other state benefit programs, it may be worth still connecting with DSHS about disaster cash assistance. And on those same lines, I would also encourage you to ask your clients about the status of their food benefits, thanks to a new resource that's been made available called Pandemic EBT Benefits. This works kind of similar to a regular SNAP card. It's a one-time payment being made through the CARES Act meant to offset the cost of the meals that students have lost from not being able to attend schools. It's a chunk of change. If a student has been eligible for free and reduced lunch since COVID started, they'll be eligible to receive as much as $400. And again, this does not consider immigration status and is not subject to public charge. We've posted a step-by-step guide on our website as to how to apply for these benefits, including highlighting which questions have to be answered and which questions don't have to be answered. So again, take a look at that and talk to your clients about whether or not they've claimed this benefit. All right, and that brings us finally to the end of our workshop. I really appreciate the folks who have stayed late on this call. If you have any reflections that you want to share, we definitely encourage you to put those in the chat box. Our two prompt questions are, how do you see yourself using these tools in your work with your clients? And what is one thing that you are taking away from this training that you will start using or change? There is a post-training survey associated with this workshop. So if you have the time and the ability, please do fill that out just to kind of get an understanding of what you've retained from this workshop. We are also going to be sending a separate set of questions in a follow-up email asking about future trainings. I want to acknowledge that this is a massive topic that we really only scratched the surface on today. So if you have further details of what we covered that you would want us to touch on at a future training, please do fill out our email survey and let us know, if we do offer a 201 version of this in the future, what you would like to see covered. And we will stay on here to answer any questions that you might have in the chat as we wrap up. A huge thank you to Donna, Joy, and Emily with Hopelink, and for everyone for taking the time out of your day to join us today. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. It was a good training.
Thank you.